Let me share my screen.
Okay, so well, let's see, I'll wait until 1 o'clock and then I'll start the webinar and people will come in. And I'm going to start it now. So we're going live, okay?
Okay.
Okay.
So Natasha, why don't you start introducing us?
Right now.
Just while folks are getting in, we've got 12 participants and just let them know that we're here.
Just welcome them and that type of thing. Just go for it.
We're live, and so
okay. All right. Okay, great. Yeah. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to SWEEP's webinar today called Recycling Unique Materials. My name is Natasha Dyer, and I will be your moderator for today's webinar, introducing you to our speakers and facilitating any Q&A at the end of today's session. I'm joining you today from the city of Atlanta, where I work on zero waste initiatives as part of the city's climate action plans and a lot of our food waste diversion goals. And we're just kind of very excited to learn more about SWEEP too. I'm personally very excited about SWEEP and what they can offer any kind of municipality to work on their zero waste goals. As you sit through the presentations today, please feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat. And don't forget to use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen throughout the session. So let's hop right in. As many of us know, hard to recycle materials require creativity and commitment on any municipality's road to zero waste. So today you'll be hearing from one of the field's greatest, Leonard Robinson, who has had a lot of experience doing just that, being very creative in solutions to recycling and sustainable materials management. Leonard currently serves as sustainability consultant to the Catholic Archdiocese of Atlanta, but he will also give you a glimpse into the days when he was serving as an appointee under former California governors Jerry Brown and Arnold Schwarzenegger, where he was developing cool and innovative programs to recycle items ranging from confiscated firearms to used oil filters. We'll also hear today from SWEEP president and founder Rob Watson on how SWEEP, which stands for Solid Waste Environmental Excellence Performance Standard, promotes the proper handling of materials by local governments and waste management companies to better get all of us on that road to zero waste. Rob is also an international leader in market transformation, being the creator of the LEED Green Building Certification. It's the most recognizable standard to getting buildings to being more green and net zero. And currently LEED is represented in over 170 countries. So after the presentations, if you find yourself interested in learning more about or participating in SWEEP as a pilot city, please reach out to them at info@sweepstandard.org, and I will drop that in the chat. I'll actually be pretty vocal in the chat, trying to get you guys familiarized with SWEEP and pointing you where you can go on the website to find more information. Also, we've got a contest as part of today's webinar where you can win a set of Recycle America. Recycle America is a fast-paced card game that challenges you to become the top recycling broker in America. And so how we've been doing that actually is we're going to look at the attendee list after today's webinar, use a random number generator, and that person will then be selected and be chosen as the winner. Then we'll contact you via email and ask you how you'd like us to send that card pack off to you. So, okay, let's now get started with the program. We'll hand you over to Leonard Robinson.
Okay, well, thank you, Natasha. Thank you, Rob. Leonard Robinson here. I serve as the sustainability consultant to the Archdiocese of Atlanta. Also, I serve as chair of SWEEP. And I'm going to talk about, my days when I worked in the steel mill. Steel is one of those materials that it fits perfectly for what we want in a circular economy. Steel is one of the most recyclable materials, in the world. And a couple of things, I use that to solve some problems. Now, if I can get the technology right, I'm going to put up this PowerPoint presentation. And let's see, here we go. Okay, we're good. Okay. Anyway, it's called Programs to Recycle Unique Materials. It's interesting because you get a lot of material that it's a whole bunch of it, and what can you do with it? And so that's what I did. I actually was the environmental manager for Tamco Steel. It was the only steel mill in California. Matter of fact, I'm going to go a little bit of my background. I didn't find my career. My career found me. I started my career in wastewater treatment plants. I graduated to solid waste and hazardous waste landfills, to Superfund sites, to I did a radio show. Then I worked for Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I worked for Governor Jerry Brown. And then from there, I went back, did lobbying. I did a radio show, and now I ended up at the Archdiocese. So I've been doing the same thing. I just have had the advantage of doing at different places. And I've had some real cool jobs. I really love where my career has taken me. And again, I didn't find it, it found me. I just happened to be at the right place at the right time. All right, this is Tamco Steel. In the process, we take scrap steel and we melt it down in an electric arc furnace. You know, most people think you're using iron ore. No, this is scrap steel. Half the steel in America is made in this process. You get an electric arc furnace, and you put the steel in, and you melt it down. And we made about 500,000 tons of steel per year. And this was our product. This is all we made. We made rebar. Rebar is a pretty cool product to make, especially in California, the earthquake capital of the world, because we made concrete reinforcing bar.
Leonard, the slides are not moving?
The slides are not moving?
Yes.
Oh, okay, let me go back.
If you go into presentation mode in the lower right-hand corner and then hit down, you should be able to get that taken care of. You may need to go back in some of the images.
Okay, what do you see now?
Still see your title slide and see PowerPoint. It doesn't look like you're in presentation mode right now.
Oh, okay. Let me get in again. This technology.
Well, it's really cool that we've got folks from all over the world participating in this webinar. And okay, now what you need to do is to go up to there's a presentation mode that because right now we're seeing your screen.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's just for you, really. Yeah.
We can see you know, the timer and all the other stuff.
Can you exit? Can you go back to where you were? Just in the slideshow back.
Okay, I'm in slideshow and I'm in presentation mode.
And so from beginning, can you hit that from beginning all the way to the left?
Yeah, just did. What are you seeing?
We see your slide, but you're still in development mode, not in presentation mode. I don't know Windows. I'm a Mac guy, so I can't.
So then just hit from current slide, because it should just start.
Okay.
Maybe
And then if it doesn't, Leonard, you'll just have to hit each slide on your left thumbnail. Just hit all the thumbnails once you want to go to the next slide on the left.
Okay, I'm gonna try that now.
Okay.
Okay. Can you see the steel mill?
there can be a lag. Right now, no.
Mhm.
How many monitors do you have? Just one or two?
Two.
Okay, so you may need to do what's called gathering the windows.
Okay.
Again, I don't know how to do that in Windows.
Okay. Are you
This is a
still
conundrum.
looking?
Do you want me to run it? Do you want to send it to me and do a next slide?
Yeah. Okay. I can do that. Do you have it?
Let's see. Okay, I think I have it here.
Okay. Let me stop sharing. Okay.
One sec.
Slides were looking good at this end.
One sec. Okay, one sec. I'll be right there.
Mhm. Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
so here,
Go to the next slide.
okay,
Okay, this is Tamco steel. We take scrap metal. Next slide. Next slide. We melt it down in an electric arc furnace. Half of America's steel is made this way, and we make steel reinforcing bar. Again, pretty cool thing to make when you're in the earthquake capital of the world in California. And that's all we made is rebar. So we really didn't have to worry about quality of the steel. We just needed steel to be strong. So looking at that, I said, if we can take steel, there's other stuff that's being landfilled that maybe, just maybe, we don't need to landfill. Maybe we can take it at the mill. Next slide. Okay, used oil filters. In the state of California, used oil filters and oil are state regulated waste, which means it's a hazardous waste. Well, we wanted to get our hands on that steel, but we didn't want the oil. Well, I had a counterpart who wanted to get the oil, but he didn't want the steel. So next slide, we met and we had a meeting. And this really spooked my boss because I had in one room, I had the US EPA, I had Cal Recycle, I had the Department of Toxic Substances Control, had the South Coast Air Quality Management District, the San Bernardino County Department of Environmental Health Services, and of course, we were there at TAMCO. And it was interesting. These were the agencies that handled all our permitting and everything, and they didn't even know each other. It was kind of a meet and greet for them. Now I'm thinking they must know each other, and I expected them to say, hey, but no, they didn't know each other. So we had a dialogue. We said, how can we take used oil filters? So the guy from the Department of Toxic Substances Control, he gave that bureaucratic answer, which, in state government, you never say no. You say get a permit, which is just as soon saying no. So I asked, what do we have to do? He said, well, get a permit. I said, no, I'm not going to get a TSD permit, which, spend millions of dollars and resources to do something that's not our normal operation. So then somebody came with the idea, maybe an exemption can be made. So that kind of sparked a lot of ideas like how would the exemption work? How can we make this work? What do we need to do? So after putting our heads together and working with our state and federal counterparts and local counterparts, this is what we came up with. Next slide. All right, next slide. Yep. Okay. What was developed was the California Health and Safety Code, Chapter 6.5, Division 20, Article 13, and California Code of Regulations, Title 22, Division 4.5, Section 66266.130. That is the management of used oil filters. Basically, what it says is used oil filters can be considered a recyclable material if the filter is crushed and the oil removed, or a good faith effort to remove oil. Well, we didn't want the oil, and the oil recyclers didn't want the steel. So this was a relationship made in heaven. Well, this went pretty good. We were getting up to 1 million to 2 million pounds of used oil filters per month. And this is the farms they were in. Next slide. We would get them crushed and put into cubes like that. Oil is squeezed out and they're nice and dense, which we like dense material. And yes, the filters did maybe contain rubber, maybe they contain a little bit of paper, but we're putting this in 3,000 degrees of molten steel. So those materials will be vaporized and turned into carbon, which goes into the steel. Next slide. This is another way that we liked our filters shredded. They'd be shredded, the paper removed, the rubber removed, and all the non-ferrous material removed, and we would take it like that. And if people would shred it, it actually had a value, and we would pay people to send us the used oil filters that are shredded. But what I liked about it is it solved a problem for the state of California. It gave us a source of free steel, and I'll talk about some of the advantages towards the end. But yeah, these filters, this kind of got us recognized because a lot of people say, oh, that's TAMCO. They make 500,000 tons of steel. Well, what I try to do is get our view to be, yes, we're TAMCO and we recycle 500,000 tons of steel. And again, steel is the best, absolute best example for the circular economy. And this is just one example of it. Well, later on, the filter manufacturers asked, what can we do for the filters that makes it more recyclable? I said, get the lead out, literally. Take the lead out, put more steel in it. And you know what they did? So now you've got the end user and the manufacturer communicating, which that's what the circular economy is about. That's why I joined SWEEP, because SWEEP talks about the things that I used to do years ago about coming up with categories and, for sustainable materials, and rather than making it a waste, call it a sustainable material. Okay, next slide. Now this is steel belted tire cords. There was a company around the corner from us, and what they do is they were taking tires, they would spray the tires with nitrogen and then hit it, and then the rubber would fall off, and then the steel belted tire cords. Well, they were landfilling the steel belted tire cords at a rate of $100 a ton, and they were making a lot of this stuff. They were making a ton of this stuff. Well, I asked, hey, can we have it? They said, yes, you have. Matter of fact, they said, we would even pay you to take it. We didn't want to get into that because that's just too much paperwork. We said, we'll take the steel. Well, the tire cord is made of a very high grade steel. And then, yes, it did have a little rubber on it, but then we got one of those unintended benefits. What I mean by unintended benefits is, what is rubber made out of? Rubber is made out of carbon. So when it went to the steel, the carbon was released. So what that did is we had to buy less carbon. We were buying carbon from one of the refineries, or $1 to $2 million per year. Once we started using steel belted tire cords with a little bit of rubber on it, we stopped buying the carbon. So that saved us $1 to $2 million a year. Again, one of those unintended benefits. We're looking at free steel, but the carbon in the rubber gave us, a benefit. It's kind of like adding hamburger helper to steak, I think. But it really worked out for us. So we were taking like 1 million pounds of steel belted tire cords per month from the local people. Pretty soon, 4 or 5 different recycling companies started sending us not used oil filters. They started sending us steel belted tire cords. Next slide. Okay, and this is one of our more famous programs. I was at work one day and I was watching the news, and the sheriff's department had this program where people could bring in their they bring in their firearms, no questions asked, and they get concert tickets. Well, that program was just wildly successful, and they had more guns than they knew what to do with. So I contacted the sheriff's department. I said, why don't you send them here? They said, well, we've got a lot of them. I said, look, we melt 500,000 tons of steel per year. I think we can manage it. So they brought the guns over and we started a program. We called it Project Isaiah. It's from that scripture, the Bible, that says they shall beat their swords into plowshares and spears into pruning hooks. Well, so we started taking guns first from the LA County Sheriff. Pretty soon, about 25 different law enforcement agencies were bringing their confiscated firearms because they knew that once these things went into our process, there was no way there's no way the guns would escape. They were taking them to a shredder, and somehow mysteriously, a lot of the guns miss the shredding machine and they'd end up back in the street. Well, in this process, the only way the guns ended back on the street is as rebar. Now, one of the interesting stories is they were building the Lakers' new facility. It was called the Staples Center. I think it's called Crypto now. They're building a new facility, and we got the contract for the rebar. Well, I predicted that the Lakers would win championships because of the firepower from the rebar, from the guns, and sure enough, the Lakers won 3 straight championships in a row, and I got free Laker tickets just for saying that. So unintended benefits. Love it, love it, love it. Okay. This program, and I just thought, well, this will be good for 1 or 2 years until TAMCO is getting ready to close. Unfortunately, sadly, they're getting ready to close. But even after I left, the 20 years after I left TAMCO, they continued with the gun melt program, Project Isaiah. If you Googled Project Isaiah or TAMCO gun melt, you'll see pictures like this of all the guns. And again, another source of high grade steel that that we were getting absolutely free. We're taking it free, and the law enforcement agencies were very, very happy that we were taking it, taking it in the door, and that they could guarantee that it was going to be destroyed. All right, next slide. All right, well, this is some of the outputs or some of the good stuff that we have from these programs, from the used oil filters, the steel belted tire cords, and the confiscated firearms. It was a source of free and low-cost scrap, high grade, I should say. It lowered the energy use by our electric arc furnace to get an effective melt. Once a recipe was developed, see what happened is they were worried about overwhelming us with used oil filters, guns, and tire cords, and we worried we couldn't get enough because we dealt in volume and we needed a whole bunch so we could develop a recipe for it. It eliminated the purchase of carbon, $1 to $2 million per year off the top, from the recycling of the tire cords. It increased the yield because yield comes from what did we pay for scrap and what did we end up with? Well, what we did is when this free scrap that we got, we could put that at the beginning, so it made our yield go up, and our shareholders really love that. And it offered 2 solutions for the solid waste challenges in California, for used oil filters and for steel belted tire cords. These things were filling up our landfill. And again, they're made of good steel. We just had to get the agencies to work with us. We had to get the industry to work with us. And we were very, very successful. It causes filter manufacturers to lower the amount of lead and increase the amount of steel in the filters. In other words, this program, because we had a successful program and it was being replicated by other steel mills across the country, we were taking the steel, and they just asked us what we needed, and we said, get the lead out, literally get the lead out, because lead, what happens, it goes into our emissions. So they eliminated, well, they lowered, drastically the amount of lead in the used oil filters, and they added more steel to it. Again, there is, kind of like the word pre-cycle. They were making things with the end use in mind. What happens to these filters once they've lived their life as a filter? What do we do with them next? Well, they became feedstock for the steel industry. Again, one of the best examples of circular economy is one of the oldest industries, steel. Also, what it did, it brought TAMCO to the table for environmental policymaker. Now, whenever the state of California was getting ready to change their policy or do a policy, they would reach out to us, to the point where when Arnold Schwarzenegger became governor, he invited me to serve in his administration because he wanted innovation in his administration, because he wanted climate change, he wanted green chemistry, he wanted the hydrogen highway, which we weren't successful on, but we did get green chemistry and we did get the climate change policy. But he wanted that innovation. He loved the fact that we were, that not only were we recycling this material, but we're at the table helping the state, at least being at the table, because if you're not at the table, you're going to be on the menu. And so when they're making policy, it's always good to have industry there. And then we got a couple of awards. We were Recycler of the Year by the Steel Manufacturers Association, and the Filter Manufacturers Filter Manufacturers Council. We, I mean, these were awards that we took very, very seriously. And we're just making steel, but then we decided we're going to do more than steel. We're going to make a difference. And I really think that this is a good example for how things should be made. Let's make things with the afterlife instead of getting into that linear approach. Let's a little bit more circular. And again, a lot of lessons can be learned from the steel industry. So it worked out really, really good. I had a great time at TAMCO. We were taking crushed drums. Anytime somebody had something made of steel, they would contact us. And I tell you what, the thing that I really wanted, it was a thing that I just couldn't get done, is I wanted to take NiCad batteries because we needed nickel to make steel. And there's only one place in South America, they had a market on the nickel. And so the price of nickel was going up. I was hoping that the state would allow us to take NiCad batteries, but they denied us. So I said, okay, I'll be back, you know me. And so we came back with the used oil filters, steel belts to tire cords. We didn't have to do any special regulation for that. And the confiscated firearms, it was more of a security thing. So again, the lessons learned here is that steel is one of your sustainable materials, but I think it can be replicated to a lot of other things. So if there's a large amount of something that's going to landfill, you have to look at it, because trust me, being in manufacturing, there's somebody that can always use it, but what that's going to cause, you're going to have to communicate with themselves, communicate with their state, local, and federal government, and as a team, and say, how can we solve this problem? The old adage, I'll close with this, is you can't manage something unless you measure it, and you can't measure something unless you identify it. And that's what we do. That's what we're doing at SWEEP, and that's why I joined SWEEP, because it just brought back so many happy memories. Good time. Apologize. Thank you for your patience as we had some technical issues. I'm not a techie person, and if you have questions, put it in the chat box, or you can reach out to me, and I'll be glad to answer the best I can. Thank you very much.
Great. Thanks, Leonard. See if I can stop sharing now. Thanks for that great presentation, and showing us how you got programs in California to center around getting citizens out of that linear mindset and getting the state to go into more of a circular mindset. Truly innovative stuff. And just to chat with you all a little bit too, we do want to hear from you, but unfortunately our chat isn't working. So if you could make sure to put all of your comments and questions in the Q&A, that would help us quite a bit. And so thank you, and thanks for staying on. And so now we're going to move on to Rob Watson of SWEEP, who's going to let us know about the standard and the pilots that cities can move into if they're interested.
Thanks so much, Leonard. That was a great presentation. Project Isaiah, I was working in Southern California at the time. The Southern California Gas Company was talking about how its gun rail, you might remember my colleague, John Picard,
Yes.
and he told me about this facility that he had worked on. And that was literally the most exciting green building material program I'd ever come across. And I was so excited when our fellow steering committee member and board member introduced us, to meet the genius behind and the brainchild of Project Isaiah was a huge honor for me. So I thank you so much for your lifetime of commitment to the environment, and we're really looking forward to having you help us make SWEEP the innovation leader that it can be. So thank you so much. So since we are talking about unique materials and innovation, I'm going to spend a few minutes running through just a quick overview of the SWEEP standard for those of you who aren't familiar with it, and then talk about the innovation section and some of the things that we call exploration credits. So our mission, as some of you may be familiar with, is to transform the materials management industry and to identify and reward sustainable best practices and leaders both in the local government sector as well as the private service provider sector. Following on what Leonard said, it is our firm belief that, Peter Drucker was correct when he said you can't manage what you don't measure. But one of the big challenges that we have in the waste industry is that a lot of the things that we're trying to measure haven't been defined, or at least they haven't been defined consistently. So one of the goals of SWEEP is to create consistent definitions, calculations, measurements, et cetera, so we can really have a sense of what's going on in the industry. And the other thing that SWEEP is really trying to focus on is not just the residential sector, which is, seems to be the focus of about 75% of the activity that we see institutionally. But it's sort of the 75-25 syndrome, where we're spending 75% of our time on 25% of the waste generation. And so we're hoping that by bringing in the non-residential sector and the multifamily sector, we can get a much clearer and holistic picture of the waste industry and create more sustainable and comprehensive policies. So what SWEEP works on is everything after the curbside, right? So we're looking at all of the infrastructure, we're looking at the policies, we're looking at data, we're looking at reporting, safety, efficient operations, cost management, and environmental best practices on all of the aspects of the waste management industry and the local government policies, et cetera, that support them. What we do is we complement True by which handles everything up to the curbside. And when we were initially designing the SWEEP criteria, we made very sure that all of the sort of channels, if you will, of achievement in True had an analog on the infrastructure side. So, we continue to work very closely with the True standard, and, we have a very profitable partnership in creating a holistic approach to both micro and macro pathways to zero waste. SWEEP, so I was the founder of the lead system, and our focus was the top quartile of the market. We never developed other standards. So you had things like, Living Building Challenge or, other standards that are more sort of mainstream. We're going to create a system of standards that gets everything from the Lighthouse SWEEP Zero standard through SWEEP Plus, which is our top quartile standard, and then SWEEP, which will be a middle market standard that will focus on improvement, not necessarily absolute performance like SWEEP Plus does. We welcome a wide variety of folks from the waste management industry to participate in the development and implementation of SWEEP. We welcome local governments of all stripes, materials management companies, as well as companies that support these activities through technology, through consulting, analysis, nonprofit policy, brokerage, et cetera. So we really want to be a leadership clearinghouse for sustainable materials management and creating a framework for the 21st century. We have broken SWEEP up into 5 principal categories. We look at policy through the Sustainable Materials Management Policy section. We look at data and performance measurement through the Waste Generation Prevention. And we also look at source reduction, public participation, a lot of sort of things that have to do with involving all aspects of folks in the waste generation and management ecosystem. Then we start getting into the instrumentalities of the waste system, where we look at collection and recovery and disposal. And I just want to make it clear that nobody gets any points for throwing things away, but we do have a small set aside for if you are managing your disposal facilities properly, reducing methane, utilizing it properly, eliminating stormwater runoff, cleaning up litter around your facility, avoiding litter, reducing idling while waiting to get onto the landfill face or into the transfer station, et cetera. So those are the kinds of things that SWEEP looks at in the disposal area. Oops, I went to the back, and that's not what we wanted to do. Okay, so sweep has points associated with all of these categories. We also have prerequisites in the Sustainable Materials Management Policy section, the WGP, and the Post-Collection Recovery PCR sections. So once the prerequisites are satisfied and you get certain numbers of points, plus whatever extra credit you get through innovation, which I'll talk about a little bit later, then you are eligible for sweep certification. And that, depending upon the number of points you get, you can be sweep certified. 50 to 59, 60 to 69 is silver, 70 to 79 is gold, and platinum is 80 plus. And that's going to be for both sweep and sweep plus. For sweep 0, we're going to have a pass-fail set up there. Supporting certification, we have an extensive certification manual. In this, we have the language of the standard. We give some background on, the why do we care about this and what do you have to do. We have linkages with our Sweep Plus certification forms, and also links with our calculators. In the early days of LEED, everybody created their own calculators, which made more work for the folks certifying and more work for the folks actually verifying. And so what we've done is through the certification forms, which are radio buttons, a little bit of text, and then file uploads, including the calculators. We've created a standardized set of calculators that are designed to ensure that consistent calculations and definitions are used for everything going into sweep. And so this is really sort of the step-by-step cookbook on how to certify. All the definitions are in it, and we also, as we are in soon, we're going to have model policies and things that model public awareness programs, those kinds of things, so that municipalities, local governments, and companies can pull those and say, because what does the sweep what does a sweep creditable policy look like? Well, here's a sample that ticks all the boxes, so you can use this as a model. And that's our goal here. And then the forms, very simple forms, check boxes, maybe a little bit of narrative, and then upload files to support it. We're really trying to minimize the cost that of organizations to certify. So we are a membership organization. So we really would love to have all of you all join us in helping create the future of sustainable materials management. Once you're a member, you have access to our committees and help look at the technical aspects, making sure that we've gotten things done properly. And then also we would love to get a couple more pilots going before we launch the system publicly. The purpose of the pilots. And sorry. So we have members all across the industry, private sector, nonprofits, universities, the Carton Council, other types of material associations, local governments all over the place, technology companies. So please join us, help us create a future for sustainable materials management. So membership benefits, we give discounts on sweep products and services. In the upcoming year, we'll be launching our training and accreditation program, certification. You also get a discount there. You can get up to 3 committees. We will highlight members in webinars, and we also earn a fair amount of free media, and we do a lot of showcasing of our programs and firms through industry publications, webinars, social media, etc. Our pilot goal is really to develop ground truth for sweep and further define and refine our certification tools and processes. The pilot's also a good way to spread awareness about sweep, and it gives us something concrete that we can begin developing the next generation of sustainable materials management professionals through the collaboration we have in developing the program and the tools with two or three universities right now that we've got projects with. So across the country, we have a variety of private sector, public sector partners. We were looking for diversity in size. We were looking for geographical diversity. We were looking for diversity in government and delivery types. So we're looking for folks that are, doing sustainable materials management in a rural setting, in a suburban setting, and in an urban setting. So if you are interested in being a pilot or learning more about what it entails, please write us at info@sweepstandard.org, and we'll set up a webinar with you or a Zoom call, and we'll go through the standard. We'll walk you through, the process and answer any questions you have. So the pilot is one of the benefits of certification is giving your constituents confidence that your program, and as well as your fellow decision makers, confidence that the programs that you've set up are working properly. Many of the programs in SWEEP have modest investment requirements, but do reduce operational and emissions and other kinds of costs very significantly. We believe that our emphasis on safety and training and employee participation in safety and environmental policies, et cetera, that these are things that we reward, that we believe that this will help recruit and retain staff, which has been a big challenge for folks, after COVID. And then, most importantly, you can identify yourself as a leader, both through membership as well as certification. You can help us develop and improve our sustainability performance benchmarking program. And one of the best ways to avoid mandatory regulation is to undertake voluntary programs that exceed where the regulatory might go, things that are voluntary, things that are a little bit more flexible, things that are a little bit more performance oriented. So rather than, reacting to the wave, you can sort of shape and be the wave of the future, because sustainable materials management is going to be the future of the industry, and SWEEP is working to define that. Our pilots are very happy. One of our industry pilots said joining the SWEEP Plus pilot program was an excellent opportunity for us to measure our current operational practices against a robust set of well-informed objective criteria. And one of our local government participants noted that they are discovering that the SWEEP Plus standards framework offers a clear, methodical, strategic pathway to focus and prioritize our clean material initiatives. So if this sounds attractive to you, please join us. We'd love to have you on board. And now I'm going to talk about innovation in SWEEP. And we get 10 bonus points that are optional and extra credit, so they're not in the denominator. Those tend to be things that are emerging, and they might be expensive. They might not be proven at scale. That would sort of be something that you implement, with comfort, right? We don't want SWEEP certification to be based on really expensive gold-plated programs, but we also want to encourage and allow innovation and reward it when it comes through. The other thing we give innovation or bonus points for is exemplary performance. So say that, tier 1 requires a diversion rate of 37%, and tier 2 requires a diversion rate of 42%. If you get 47% diversion, then you'll get an innovation credit, right? So basically, if you have credits that have tiers performance, if you go like one notch above, then you'll automatically get a point for that up to the 10 that are available. And then we have things called exploration credits. So basically an innovation credit is something that you put in, you sort of talk about what you're intending to, what's the problem that you're intending to solve. What is your generic criteria? It's made to reduce oil filter contamination and leaching into groundwater in landfills. And so we're going to do an innovative oil filter recycling program, right? So you define what the criteria are, divert X tons or, X percent or something from, your local waste stream, and, you get a credit. And so we'll say, yeah, this is important. It's addressing something that we need to, so therefore you get credit. And then the exploration credits are innovation credits, but ones that are defined. So we have 5 exploration credits in SWEEP. The first one is implementing a collective bargaining agreement, which is worth 2 points. So that is for if you implement a collective bargaining agreement with workers, that makes you eligible for points. You're not required to have a union shop. You're not required to have a collective bargaining agreement, but if you do, it's something that you can get credit for. Similarly, we reward 2 points for the use of measured, verified, or certified data. So a lot of times, your program may only work off of averages or estimates or calculations, but we want to encourage folks to measure, verify, and certify their data. So if you can show us in any of the credits that you are submitting that you have gone through some sort of measurement, verification, or certification process, you will automatically get 2 points extra for that particular credit up to the 10-point limit. And then, one of the big things about SWEEP is looking sort of beyond the program into market development. So we have several credits that focus on market development, but one of the things that we're in, and so we basically have credits that if you have something that accepts your material and processes it into new products within 50 miles, you get a credit. If you have something within 500 miles, you get a point, and then you get a point if it's within 2,000 miles. So the closer in you get, the more credit you get, and this one's even closer. So within 20 miles, that's something you get credit for. Similarly, most programs for hazardous waste focus on residential, and so what we're looking for is folks to create programs and support them looking at hazardous waste material in the non-residential sector, not industrial sector, but commercial and multifamily. And then looking at mining and reclaiming landfills, if you do certain things under Tier 1, mining, material recovery, toxic testing, etc., you get a credit. And if you change your landfill designs to facilitate future mining, protect them with stormwater management, and segregate organic and inorganic materials, or wet and dry organics, then those are also things that you can get credit for. So as you can tell, these are somewhat complicated, somewhat innovative, somewhat new. So the purpose of an exploration credit is sort of things that we are likely to put in the standard in the future, but then we'll want to get a little bit of a better handle on before we release it as part of the main system. Hopefully we can get you to go to the website, check out, we've got a whole bunch of great blog posts and reports. The standard is available for download. You can join. Then we can get you involved. And what we do is we would set up a meeting and figure out what committees you want to be on, what kind of other kinds of participation you want to do. And then we'll be on the merry road to a sustainable management future. So here are the main points of contact via email and the web. And we would really love to have you join us and change the world. Very happy to take questions for Leonard and me. And thank you for sharing your Thursday afternoon with us.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Rob, for giving us that overview of SWEEP and how it envisions a world without waste. We do have some questions in the chat, and I can go ahead and ask them to you and just want to share with everyone, go ahead and put those questions in the Q&A and we'll get these questions answered. But one is asking, does SWEEP have, or is it developing policies related to chemical recycling?
Yes, that's an excellent question. And the short answer is that we will have policies around that and credits associated with that. And we will probably bring those credits in through the innovation process. This is our channel for doing things this way. So, for example, in the sweep standard, we will probably give much broader credit for advanced recycling. And even if you were to, chemically decompose something and use that decomposition as fuel, you would probably get a little bit of credit for that under sweep. It's unlikely you would get that for credit under sweep plus, but if you took the syngas from the thermal conversion process or whatever advanced recycling process and turned it into a new plastic, and you could show or a feedstock that was non-energy, not sort of plus one and done, then yes, we would probably count that under sweep, and what we will use the innovation and exploration credit process to define and refine those points down the road, and then integrate them to the standard once we have some consensus.
Excellent. And we have another question here. I'm asking, even though I do not reside in the States, is it possible to be a member of SWEEP?
We welcome people from all over to become members of SWEEP. Generally, the membership is for organizations, but if you're an independent consultant or a student or something like that, you could sign up as an individual. We do have individual memberships, but they are for folks who are not part of a larger organization. Eventually, something like SWEEP will be released internationally, but this is very much focused on the type of infrastructure you find in North America, and it may not be applicable in many parts of the world. So we want to make sure that we understand better the type of system into which SWEEP is going to be mapped in order to develop it effectively.
What is the cost of memberships? Is that something we want to send them to the website for?
I mean,
or kind of
the specifics are on the specifics are on the website, but generally, if you're a local government or a local government entity, it would be based on the population of the jurisdiction that you're in. So we basically have three buckets. We have small local governments, medium local governments, and large local governments. Large pay 1,000, medium pays 500, small pays 250. And then on the private sector side, we have similarly much finer gradations because it's based on your revenues. But we have small businesses, medium businesses, and large businesses. And again, it's based on revenues. But the top membership fee for the biggest companies, $1 billion plus companies, is $5,000. Much less expensive than other organizations similarly positioned, and our certification fees we're trying to keep low as well, so that we don't inhibit participation due to issues.
Excellent. All things to remember. So also there's a question here that says, are there any credits specific to carbon removal in general for biocarbon removal, storage, and biochar?
Yeah. We tend not to credit specific technologies in SWEEP, but if you can demonstrate that your technology is an effective way of processing a certain type of material, and that contributes to a diversion rate, or it contributes to a reduction in the per capita disposal of materials, then we have credits in SWEEP that would address that. Now, if there's something specific to biochar or carbon sequestration, or you can demonstrate that there's something sort of specific and extra that is attached to your approach that's not covered elsewhere in the standard, then that's where, again, the innovation credit would come in, And if it looks like this is big enough and important enough and sort of broadly applicable enough, we certainly would consider, bringing it into the broader sweep standard over time.
Gotcha. Okay, and here we have a question that says they are a local government. We have a recycling program, some composting, and operate a transfer station. Can SWEEP help us integrate these programs and plan for future?
That is SWEEP's sweet spot.
I was gonna say,
Yeah,
absolutely.
say that 10 times fast.
Yeah.
But the short answer is yes. Really what SWEEP is trying to do is provide a framework for what a sustainable materials management program does. And obviously, as a local government, when you execute that, there are going to be some things that you do yourselves, and there are going to be some things that you contract other folks to do. As a local government, you are, at least under the SWEEP context, responsible for everything generated in your jurisdiction. So one of the options, which could be either be an advantage or a challenge, is that you try and engage your service providers in doing it. The hook for the service provider is if they serve more than one jurisdiction, then if they get their activities certified, that certification rolls over onto some of their customer jurisdictions. So they could sell the ability to get SWEEP certification to some of their other jurisdictions, piggybacking on work that they've done already, and they don't have to redocument, rejustify. Those credits would basically automatically check off for the neighboring jurisdictions, which also would have responsibility for ensuring that their own programs meet. But we're trying to, that's sort of the reciprocity that we've tried to design into the standard. I'm really hoping we have some questions for Leonard. His work was so fascinating that if I don't see an audience question, I'm going to ask one.
No, please ask away.
So Leonard, you sort of came at it from the local, the manufacturer perspective. If I were a waste hauler or I were a local government, how would I go about engaging you aside from cloning you and trying to get you, distributed across the country? How would one of these entities approach somebody like a TAMCO to get that kind of innovative partnership going?
Well, again, it gets to getting to know who your industries are. Until everybody met at the table, I had agencies that didn't even talk to one another. So it's just, it's just a matter of communication. And okay, tell me about your process. When people think of steel mill, they think of iron ore and they think of these blast furnace and all this pollution, and we're taking scrap and we're sitting right in the middle of a city, but nobody really knew. We were the best kept secret around. So it's really just to getting to know one another. I needed to find out what government could and couldn't do. When they talked about permits, I said, I'm not going to do that. Well, then they said, okay, we'll come up with a variance then. Okay, that now you're talking. So again, it's communication.
And hopefully, through SWEEP, with the community engagement, with the pathways to participation, with, rewards for innovation, hopefully we can, this may seem crazy, but what we're really hoping is that we can get service providers and local governments to work closely together in a more collegial, cooperative, and sustainable fashion. One of the things that I've seen, I've only been in this industry for a few years, but there's still fairly adversarial relationship between service providers and the customers, kind of like utilities in the early day. But over time, the electric utilities became providers of energy efficiency and supported customers better rather than just sort of saying shut up and pay your bill. And hopefully we can get that kind of collaboration. We did a lot of this in LEED between tenants and landlords, or all the different service providers in a tenancy or construction and design situation. So that's why we want a broad group of people.
And see, sweep can be that, sweep could act as that go-between, between industry and locals, federal and state government, kind of acting as a liaison, saying, okay, get to know one another, or be the keeper of the peace, or whatever, or to get, the groups to change their perceptions of one another.
Exactly. Do we have any more questions? Because we're getting towards the end of the hour. And again, thank you so much for sharing your holiday time with us.
I don't see any more questions in the chat. If you guys, oh yeah, looks like we're at. If you do come up with something burning in the end, or after we've left you, please don't hesitate to reach out again at info@sweepstandard.org, and make sure to go over to the website sweepstandard.org to check out anything you about joining, more about the sweep, more about the credits. Please join us, see what you might do with sweep, and let us help you get to your zero waste goals.
And we will post the webinar video on our YouTube channel, and we will make copies of the presentations available to participants and one lucky participant will get a Recycle America game, which is actually quite fun to play.
That's right. Yeah, and
Okay,
if we don't
thanks so
see you
much.
again, have a good holiday. Happy holidays, everyone.
See you all next year.